So a couple of years ago in 2016, we all remember all the celebrities that were just dying off left and right, the mass carnage of celebrity deaths. I want to say I posted on Twitter, it may have been Facebook, probably Twitter though. I said something to the effect of getting older is just an endless series of watching your heroes die. Because that's what it felt like in 2016. 2018, I guess starting in 2017, but definitely this year too, the equivalent is not so much the deaths, but it's scandals, sex scandals and whatnot, the whole Me Too movement. And what just happened last week was Bill Cosby. I'm sure we all heard Bill Cosby got uh, convicted of rape and sexual assault, whatever the term is. And this has hit me really hard because anybody who grew up in the 80s like I did remembers the Cosby Show. It's kind of hard to remember now just how huge that show was back then. I mean, it was huge. I remember it was an event every year when they started a new season, because they had a different um, opening title thing, a different opening credits sequence. Every season they had a different thing, and it was like a big event. Like, what's it going to be this year? When they unveiled it, it was I think easily the most popular and most successful sitcom of the 80s. But that's not what my connection with Bill Cosby is. When I was a kid, I was a very sheltered child. A lot of the other kids might have listened to Eddie Murphy's stand up and stuff like that. I was not allowed anywhere near that, but my parents, of course, were cool with me listening to Bill Cosby. Ironically, Eddie Murphy has never been arrested for sexual assault, and Bill Cosby has. But I listened to a lot of Bill Cosby growing up because I was allowed to. And I was really into comedy, as I'm sure you can imagine. That's probably not a shock. And I had all of his old albums. I mean, that's something that people who don't really know much about Bill Cosby don't know. He had a huge career before the Cosby Show ever happened. He was in the movie, the TV show I Spy. That was kind of his first big break. But before that, he was a comedian going all the way back to the 50s. And he had a string of albums, comedy albums. And then there was Bill Cosby himself, which was a stand-up special that he did that was on video, that one. And that was actually, when you watch the first episode, if you ever watched the pilot of The Cosby Show, a lot of that was taken from Bill Cosby himself. And Bill Cosby himself is one of the most amazing stand-up performances ever. I mean, it's up there with the legends. And if you watch the movie Comedian, which was, I don't know, it's probably about 10 years old now, maybe even more, maybe more like 15 now. It was about Jerry Seinfeld after his TV show ended, and it was kind of showing him trying to get his stand-up career back, trying to kind of get back into that. And it was an interesting documentary. It's definitely worth watching if you're into that whole thing, and I definitely was for a long time. And at a certain point, he talks to a lot of different comedians along the way, just sort of interviews with them. You could kind of see the precursor of comedians in cars getting coffee. But at one point, he talks to Chris Rock. And Chris Rock talks about how he just saw Bill Cosby performing. And this was way after Bill Cosby was kind of out of the limelight and everything. And they were talking about, like, he's still got it, man. And like the joy in Chris Rock's face talking about Bill Cosby, seeing Bill Cosby's performance, like he was like, man, it's just boom, 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 and just goes on and on about how good Bill Cosby was. Like the reverence they held for him as a stand-up comedian was a joy to watch. It was good to watch people like be that excited about somebody. And toward the end of the documentary, Jerry does sit down with Bill Cosby and has an interview with him, and it's like a big thing. He's talking to the legend, Bill Cosby. So the point is, a lot of us know Bill Cosby because of The Cosby Show. And he's like America's dad, like he was always called that. But before that, he was a comedy legend. And I don't want to say I had all of his old albums, but I had most of them. And I listened to them nonstop. I knew every single bit by heart, and some of it to this day I think is some of the best comedy material that's out there. And now I have to be faced with the idea that this guy that really was something of a hero to me for a very big part of my formative years has turned out to be an absolute monster. He got convicted of this one. I'm sure there will be more. The number of people that have come out and accused him is up in the 50s now of drugging them and having sex with them while they were unconscious or unable to fight him off, or using his position of authority to get women to sleep with him, either by saying that he could destroy their career or that he could make their career. Either way, they're both odious. And we've been hearing these rumors for a long time, and ironically it was Hannibal Buress that really started this whole train toward where we are now. He did a stand-up routine where he was basically calling Bill Cosby a rapist, and everybody was like, oh my God. And it got all this attention, but then it was like, actually, no, he is. He actually is. Like it was this shocking thing to say, but it was only shocking because it was the truth. It's just none of us really wanted to admit it. And I'm certainly one of those people. When all this first got started, which was a long time ago, I remembered hearing it and thinking, the whole argument that these are just people trying to make money off of a celebrity, it all seemed plausible to me. That kind of thing happens all the time. And his reputation was just so sterling at the time that I was willing to go along with it. And this isn't a mea culpa. This isn't a confessional on my part. I'm not saying that I did anything wrong here. I think I went along with what everybody else was thinking at the time. But I've definitely come around, long before this conviction ever took place, I've come around to having to understand, yeah, he did these horrible things. So in a way, he's kind of been dead to me for a while. The whole, thing that I was saying at the beginning about your heroes dying, this is a sort of death. That death had already occurred as far as I'm concerned, but this conviction was the last nail in the coffin, if we could continue with the death metaphor. But this is difficult for me to reconcile. And I'll be honest, when I heard the conviction, I kind of went on a bit of a Bill Cosby old comedy bit watching spree as a way of kind of just getting it out of my system and being like, it's all been ruined now, but it still holds such a place in my heart, those comedy bits I listened to and got so much joy out of as a kid. I'm going to go ahead and watch them and kind of get it out of my system so that I can kind of say goodbye to all that, I guess, if I could get over dramatic about it. But it's, I have this thing going in my head. It's like, is it possible to completely separate a person's works from their private lives? If somebody does like brilliant stuff, obviously it doesn't forgive the horrible stuff that they did, but is there a way to still enjoy the brilliance and allow that to remain while being able to shun the behavior and the acts that they did? And this is up for debate. I mean, there are some people that might say, look, I'm using Bill Cosby as an example, but it could be anything. If somebody does something that is meaningful to a lot of people in the world and brought them all joy, people should still be able to get joy from that. Even as you say, yes, this was a horrible person that may have been actually one of the worst serial rapists of all time. Like, if all the accusations against him were true, he would be one of the worst serial rapists that has ever lived over decades. That's what I'm struggling with. I'm struggling with, do I allow myself to continue enjoying the stuff that he did, or is it all just ruined now? Anyway, I don't know where to go with this. I just wanted to kind of put that out there. Like, Bill Cosby is a monster, and the guy is probably going to die in jail. And I was saying to my wife when we were walking the dogs the other day, if you went back in time to the 80s and told somebody that in 30 years Donald Trump will be president and Bill Cosby will be in jail for rape, I would just love to be able to do that and watch somebody's head explode. Like, nobody would be able to believe that. And that's not a slam on Donald Trump either, by the way. Like, he was this like tabloid figure back in the 80s. That's what he was. He was mostly known for his divorces and Playboy lifestyle. So it has nothing to do with politics. It's just that's what everybody thought of him back then. This is a really weird world we live in. Anyway, Bill Cosby's a monster, and that sucks because he's also was kind of a comedy genius, and I'm gonna miss enjoying his stuff from when I was a kid. We'd love to hear what you think. Is it possible to appreciate a person's creative works even if they're monsters? I feel a little bit the same way with Louis C.K., although Louis C.K. did not do anything remotely like Bill Cosby did. I wonder if he's going to recover from this. It's probably going to take years. Louis C.K. Bill Cosby's not going to recover. He's gone. He's gone. But anyway, I just felt like talking about it because it's something that's going on in my head right now. Anyway, hope you guys are having a good one, and I'll catch you later.